Good morning, Courtney. How are you?
I'm great, guys. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you, Courtney Cronin. Before Thomas Brown became the interim head coach for the Bears, what did you think of him?
I thought back on this recently. Like, my first interaction with him was during one of those we get like offensive assistants every other Thursday. And it was a random, like, run-of-the-mill, maybe like week 2, week 3. It was in the middle of, I think it was after the Colts loss. And where they scatter them in the midway, like, everybody spread out. And I remember everybody was talking to Kerry Joseph because they want to talk about Caleb Williams and everything else that was going on in the midst of the 1-2 start. And I went over and I was like, me and one other person just chatting with Thomas Brown. And just like the insight you gather from him, you're like, damn, this dude's really sharp. And I remember talking to him again, probably the next time I talked to him was in London, because how often are you truly talking to the then pass game coordinator? And once again, it was in the midst of, all right, Caleb's back on track. Why is that? What do you do as a pass game coordinator to, influence his development? And just, I don't know, there was something different about him just in the way that he relayed the intricacies without, like, obviously giving away, state secrets. But it was interesting just to hear his perspective, having done this with Bryce Young a year ago, and now in the midst of, that point, like weeks up till week 7, doing it with Caleb Williams. So I'm not surprised when you hear what people say about how direct he is with his communication, how, and I guess, like, how he's able to galvanize this team. But there's something about his personality that kind of feels very magnetic. And you can understand why he's got the support from this locker room in ways that I don't know if it would be if it was a different coach. Just like there's something about Thomas, maybe it's his age. He's 38. He's close in age to, like, it's not like he'd like just finished up playing a year ago, but he's not that far removed from it. So I think he can walk, since he walked the walk, a lot of the players here can understand that and, buy into what he's selling them.
Okay, so let me ask you this question. And I preface this by saying I've been super impressed with him at the podium. But I also go back and I listen to Caleb when the change was made from Waldron to Thomas Brown, and he said, yeah, I really didn't interact with him that much. My dealings were with Shane Waldron. And now 3 weeks later, he's gone from passing game coordinator to interim offensive coordinator to head coach to he'll be building the stadium in January. And there are people going, well, this dude looks really good over the 5 games, albeit in a lost season. He should get the head coaching job. And my response is, like him very much, very impressed with what I've heard. The offense, a lot of it, they were horrible the first half in Detroit. They've been a lot of hero ball play from Caleb that's been awesome, not so much from the structure of the offense. That said, LaFleur, Campbell, O'Connell, if he looks really good over 5 games, are you prepared to entrust the greatest quarterback prospect you've ever had to that guy?
Well, that's why they have to do a widespread search. Like, Thomas Brown's somebody that they want to interview, but they're trying to be realistic about this. They don't want to view these 5 games as an audition because that's unfair. Like, this is not his offense. He 2 promotions in the period of 17 days is almost unheard of in the NFL. And I don't think that you can automatically put all your eggs in the Thomas Brown basket without having considered everybody else. That being said, they haven't won a game with him calling plays yet. I do think that has to factor in. I'm not saying that you have to hit a certain win number in order to, like, seriously consider him as a head coaching prospect, but you got to see this stuff translate more than just a feel-good story of the offense was in position to win the game. Like, did they or did they not? So I think all of that said, these next 5 games, as much as the Bears are trying to be, like, self-aware that Thomas Brown is in an incredibly, like, uphill battle sort of situation, if there's something that they see with the buy-in, that they see long-term, this could work here. He's somebody who not only can handle the X's and O's part and can handle a staff in the middle of the season for, you'd obviously want to know who he'd bring in on his staff, if he'd retain anybody, if the structure is right. I tend to think a lot of this has to do with Caleb Williams. As much as Ryan Poles said the other day that he wasn't sure, I think he used the word, like, how much significant input he's going to put into it. But it might not be them going to Caleb saying, hey, who do you want as your next head coach? But the Bears seeing if there's something that they really like with Thomas Brown and Caleb Williams in the development over these next couple games that continues from the last 3 games, I think you have to truly consider that, because do you really want to throw him onto his 3rd offensive coordinator, 3rd play caller by his 18th game? That, to me, in the turnover, when you talk about early season or early career development for a young quarterback, limiting that as much as you can is important. And if it's Thomas Brown, if you really see something there that you're like, this can't be replaced by somebody else, it's working with who we have right now, why overcomplicate that? I think a lot of times in the NFL, these front offices, everybody's on these hiring committees, overcomplicates things. No one in the NFL should need to hire a search firm. I said this on Waddle and Phil the other day. It's a $500,000 waste of money. If you don't know the right coaches that are the up-and-comers in this industry that should be considered for your head coaching position, you need to get the wax out of your ears and listen to things that are happening outside of your building. They're going to know who they want on their short list. And they probably already know right now. Thomas Brown should be on that short list. And if he's the right fit, don't overcomplicate it thinking, oh, well, we went with the choice that was, most expected. If it's the right choice, it's the right choice, guys.
Courtney, as we talked to Courtney Cronin about the Bears on the Kap J Morning Show, before we turn the page on the previous regime totally, I want to go back to something you said a couple of weeks ago. When you observed Matt Eberflus, and you thought that he seemed tired or low energy. You recall? I remember you saying this.
So it was that Wednesday press conference after the Patriots game.
Yeah, I remember you saying that. And I just want to know, do you believe that he had an inkling, Eberflus, that the beginning and the end was happening? Because, as you mentioned, usually he's going to say his talking points, whatever. But there was something different about his demeanor, tired, whatever, after that Patriots game. Do you believe that he knew, okay, the X might be coming?
I'm glad you asked me about that, because as I was doing my reporting for the story I put out on Tuesday, I talked with someone in the building just about what the last couple of weeks were like. Were there signs that were exhibited by the head coach that maybe he knew the end was near? And the source I talked to just told me, he just almost looked like he didn't have the light in his eyes anymore that he did, that he was just, you're not sleeping, you're trying to figure this thing out. And so few coaches, when you are in that deep of a hole, can dig themselves out of it. And, that's the nature of this, that when you are in self-preservation mode, you go inward and you make bad decisions, like we saw happen on four different times within the 6-game losing streak where they lose on the final play. And so the body language, that part of it where Eberflus is just trying to keep his head above water, that was apparent to us just by the way that he was presenting publicly, and it was definitely apparent to the people inside Hallis Hall who were interacting with him every day.
You mentioned the search firm thing, which I am anti-search firm. I do believe you have to hire an outside organization to do the background check. So I'm going to hire Courtney Cronin potentially for a high-profile, multi-million-dollar gig. I've got to know without a shadow of a doubt. Give me the background on everything good and bad, and then I can weigh it all. I can't hire you, and then a month later, oh, God, how did we not know that? So I'm good with that part of it. But in terms of, I have a general manager. I like Ryan Poles. Nobody's perfect, but I'm very concerned that Kevin Warren, he shouldn't have been the one up at that press conference. Kevin Warren should have been in his office watching his GM and evaluating him, how he handled it. And if Ryan comes in and goes, I'm hiring Ben Johnson, I'm hiring Brian Flores, I'm hiring this guy. Okay, tell me why. Now let me meet with him. I'd like to talk to him. And then as the upper, George and Kevin, they go, okay, that's your guy. We'll judge you on how he performs. I don't like where this is headed.
I understand where you're coming from. I understand how the press conference came across, where there's, we're bringing up body language of the general manager and how, I'll say this again. When someone is talking for an extended period of time, do you expect the person next to them to be a bobblehead and just have a smile on their face the entire time? No, it would look inauthentic. It would look stupid. But there's a happy medium between looking sullen and what I just described. So I think that, it's a learning experience. It's a PR thing. Beyond that, though, you could tell where the balance of power lies by that one press conference alone. That's the conversation around the Bears nationally and around with 31 other teams. Who's really in charge in Chicago? And the way that Kevin Warren opened up the press conference, he's the one who let us know that Ryan Poles is being retained. So that sounds like a him decision because, remember, the structure here. He's over football operations in the organizational chart. Like, that's his call. And that's why it's different. It's foreign to Bears fans because it feels very foreign in the NFL where you have a team president who is this involved publicly. You don't see this that often, but it's the structure that the Bears chose to orchestrate when they hired Kevin Warren in January of 2023. And so that's why it is the way that it is, where typically a general manager is the front-facing person making all of the decisions, speaking publicly for the organization. Like it or not, that's different here. You have multiple voices, which I think is going to factor into who they end up hiring as a head coach, more than just if Ryan Poles likes this guy or Kevin Warren likes this guy. We've heard about, what I think the way it was phrased is, what if there's dissenting voices on who wants on the head coach? And it took Kevin Warren a minute, but he ended up getting back to, well, Ryan's the general manager, it's his call. I think they're going to have to find a head coach who can acquiesce a little bit and not need to be the most dominant voice in the room, because I think he found out pretty clearly in that press conference who is.
Courtney, the season is slipping away from the 49ers. What should the Bears be concerned with this 49ers team going on the road?
I mean, I think it's always against the Kyle Shanahan offense, knowing that you can get out schemed and being prepared for that. They haven't done it that often this year, and I think injuries are a big part of that because there hasn't been a Brandon Ayuk in a while. Christian McCaffrey's on injured reserve. Their running back room is pretty thin right now, just like the Bears. This is a vulnerable 49ers team. It almost kind of mirroring in a lot of ways the struggles that the Bears have gone through, except they have the injury excuse. Chicago does not, by and large, did not have that. So this is an opportunity. I don't think it could have lined up any better for the Bears going on the road to face the 49ers after making a coaching switch, getting the bump of the new head coach, the interim head coach bump that you get with Thomas Brown. This feels like a team that is more evenly matched than any of the division opponents that they played and kept the games close with. So I picked the Bears this week. I think I said on the podcast 24-21. We'll see how this defense bounces back too. I think that they've been playing better as of late. Certainly what they did against that Detroit offense last week is something to take into consideration. But I think this is an opportunity, and I don't know if it'll be one that they can start be a snowball effect on, but in the short term, there is no better opponent to fall into place here week 14 than a 49ers team that is all but out of the playoffs at this point and, just fighting to keep their season alive too.
Courtney, have a wonderful weekend. I will not bring up the Indiana game because my Buckeyes, while they dominated your Hoosiers, did not seal the deal against Michigan. But if Ole Miss gets in and IU doesn't, I will be there with Kleenex for you.
I still don't understand this Ohio State connection. The more I've done research and my own $1 million background search on it, Cap, I don't understand this affiliation. You didn't go there.
No, but my college football coach was the coach there.
That's wonderful. I have ties to people that are fans of other teams too, and you don't see me bandwagoning for them.
It's a weird Kevin Bacon dynamic, isn't it?
I'm trying to I can't wrap my head around this, but I get it. You got to latch on to winners somewhere because they're lacking in other areas. So I get it.
Cubs are going all the way next year, Courtney.
All the way to
the
bottom.
So.
Yeah,
at least to the playoffs.